Okay, so I just rearrange things on my screen to make it look better. Okay, so we were talking about different things related to using um, wine, other material that is left in storage with Gentiles, and whether Gentiles coming into contact with them or even just caring for it uh, affects the status, the kashrut status of the item. So we're at a red S, which means we're a slightly different direction that we're going in, excuse me. So the Mishnah teaches, and Hadrianic earthenware is prohibited. So just a little bit of background. The Emperor Hadrian might be best known for the wall that was built in England, right? Hadrian's Wall that you find in England from Hadrian's time in the Roman Empire. In Jewish history, uh, I only learned about Hadrian's Wall later. In Jewish history, I learned about Hadrian as being probably the most evil of all emperors. Yes, Titus and Vespasian were bad because they destroyed the temple in Jerusalem. Hadrian, a little bit worse in that he cleared the rubble, flattened the Temple Mount, and built a Roman temple on the site of the temple in Jerusalem. So Vespasian, the emperor, and Titus, the general, were bad. They knocked down the temple, but they left the rubble there. Hadrian is worse in that he cleared it out and built the Roman temple on that site. Also, he during his time, it's the rabbis who he instituted a law saying the public teaching of Torah was forbidden, and anybody who violated that would be subject to execution. And the executions of rabbis were described in great detail in the Talmud and makes up what is essentially the martyrology service on Yom Kippur. So in our Machzor and most other modern Machzors, we have lots of stories over the course of Jewish history of Jews martyred, but the original liturgy itself is stories from the Talmud of rabbis being tortured to death. So that was all under Hadrian's time. So that's just so that when we see the name Hadrian in the Talmud, we're supposed to understand not the wall in England, but the terrible things he did in Israel. So Hadrianic earthenware is prohibited. The Gemara asks, what is Hadrianic earthenware? Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says it is earthenware of Emperor Hadrian. So there's background, earthenware of Emperor Hadrian. Hadrian was the Roman emperor from 117 to 138 so now I have to, in Jewish literature, he is famous for brutally crushing the Bar Kokhba revolt, devastating Jerusalem, and building an idolatrous city in its place. Nearly half of his rule was spent traveling through various parts of the Roman Empire. Apparently, his soldiers made use of this type of earthenware on their journeys. So we'll see a description of the earthenware. When Rav Dimi came, he said, there was an expanse of virgin soil that no man had ever tilled before, and Hadrian tilled it, planted grapevines in it, which yielded wine of the highest quality, and they placed this wine in white jugs. So let's look at note for white jugs. Rashi explains that the whiteness of the jugs indicates that the jugs are new and have not yet been used at all. For this reason, their capacity to absorb the wine is enhanced. Alternatively, white earthenware jugs have not been colored or supplemented with some other substance that would prevent them from absorbing the maximum amount of flavor. So I don't know much about pottery except for, having birthday parties for my kids at like make your own pottery kind of thing. So I know that they give you hard something that's hard already that then you can paint with special pottery paint, and then you come back a few days later after it's been put in the kiln again, right? So this clay was fashioned, put in the kiln so that it becomes pottery. Then the next stage is to paint it or to glaze it in some way, and that has to go into the kiln again to get hardened permanently there. So perhaps the white clay, this is what I'm picturing as my expertise here with these make your own pottery places. That's the initial putting the clay in the kiln, taking it out, that's the white pottery, which it's very porous. And so if you put wine in it, you can understand that how the wine will kind of seep into the pores of the jug and color that jug also. Um, so that's how porous earthenware is, and that's why earthenware can never be koshered. In other words, you put something dairy in it, it is dairy. You cannot kosher earthenware to make it parov, to make it from one to the other. Um, so. Um, Okay, so he says there was an expanse of virgin soil that no man had ever tilled before, and Hadrian tilled it and planted grapevines in it, which yielded wine of the highest quality. And they placed this wine in white jugs, and the jugs absorbed the wine, and they would break the jugs into shards and carry the shards with them, and anywhere that they stopped, they soaked these shards in water and drank the water. So, okay, so you want flavored water. This, I guess, that this is what they would do with these special jugs from this vineyard, from the wine that was produced from this vineyard, from soil that had never been tilled before. So that's special Hadrianic earthenware. The Gemara notes that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi says, and our first-rate wine is like the wine produced by the third usage of their Hadrianic earthenware. So in other words, the best wine, Yehoshua ben Levi said, the best wine that Israel can produce, the land of Israel can produce, is only as good as this water that had the shards of the wine jugs put in the water. So that's how great Hadrianic wine was, 3 times better than wine of the land of Israel. So let's look at the note to see what first.
Jonah, did they drink the wine first before they broke it into shards?
Say that again, Bess.
Did the soldiers drink the wine first and then they broke the
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think the point of the story is about the wine itself. The point of the story is about the jug.
But they,
so I don't know. The details, the story is as written. I don't know anything more about it. Our first-rate wine, Rashi explains that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi is referring to wine of the highest quality. Some commentaries explain that it was a common practice to crush the grapes a bit, put them in a barrel, fill the barrel with water so that the water would absorb the taste of the grapes. The crushed grapes were subsequently removed and placed in a different container of water for it to absorb the flavor as well. This was repeated several times with the water absorbing less flavor on each occasion. According to this particular rabbi, known by his abbreviation RID, Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi, is saying that the beverage produced by the third usage of Hadrianic earthenware was equivalent to the beverage produced by the first instance of the above process. Other commentaries have a different version of the text, which omits first. Okay, so it's just a story about how great Hadrianic wine was, produced, stored in this earthenware, and how that earthenware gave off the grape flavor to the water, and how that was even better than the wine produced in Israel. So the problem is, though, that this Hadrianic earthenware is prohibited, which means then that this wine or water is forbidden to drink. Okay? A dilemma was raised before the sages. Okay, so now the earthenware is used to produce a beverage. So you're drinking, it's forbidden to drink the beverage that's produced by the earthenware, the shards being put into water. So that a dilemma was raised before the sages. What is the halacha if one wishes to use such shards to support the legs of a bed with them? So in other words, you're not going to use it for food or drink. You just want to use it to kind of, you got these shards, you want your bed off the floor. Why not use these shards for that? Can't you do that? It's use it as furniture, not about something that you're going to actually eat or drink. Yes?
They didn't have matchbooks or
Right,
packets.
that's right. Is one who desires a prohibited item's continued existence in order to use it for another matter, that is, not for the prohibited purpose, permitted to use it, or prohibited from doing so? So in other words, is the earthenware forbidden absolutely, or only forbidden if it's related to food or drink? So not absolutely forbidden. In this case, no benefit whatsoever is derived from the wine absorbed within the shards, but the shards themselves are being used to support the bed. The Gemara suggests, come and hear a resolution to the dilemma, as Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yochanan engaged in a dispute in this case. One prohibited using the shards in such a fashion, and one permitted the practice. The Gemara adds, and the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of the sage who prohibited it. So the rabbis are saying then that they're going with the opinion that this particular earthenware is absolutely prohibited from any use at all, absolutely forbidden. The Gemara raises an objection from a baraita to the sage who deems it permitted. It's like, so why would somebody permit it? So here they're going to have an argument with the rabbi who permitted it, even though they've all agreed, the majority of rabbis have agreed that it's not permitted. With regard to the jugs and flagons of Gentiles that have a Jew's wine contained in them, one is prohibited from drinking the wine, but one is permitted to derive benefit from it. So the wine is prohibited, but you can sell the wine. You could use it for some other purpose and derive some benefit from it that way, but you're just not allowed to drink it. The Gemara notes that Shimon ben Guda testified, so it's not. It's just funny to me to see names that are similar to something else. So it's not the cheese from Holland, but it's some other name, some Aramaic name, Gouda. The Gemara notes that Shimon ben Guda testified before the son of Rabban Gamliel with regard to Rabban Gamliel that he drank from it in Akko. But the sages did not concede to the ramifications of his testimony. In other words, somebody's reporting that Rabban Gamliel drank this particular wine, the wine of Gentiles, in the city of Akko. So Akko, even today, the city of Akko is a mixed city. That is, today it is Jewish and Muslim. And for the most part, the Jews and the Arabs in Akko get along. So perhaps Akko has always been. So Akko, the city of Akko, is north of Haifa on the coast. It was a crusader port. And Napoleon was there, so it's an ancient city. And if you've ever been to Akko, you can see the port. It's pretty strategic port. So and lots of people then. All kinds of people would be living in that city. So it would be more common to not just do business, for Jews to do business with pagans at the time, but perhaps even to drink their wine. But the rabbis did not concede Resh Shimon ben Guda's testimony, so they didn't believe Shimon ben Guda here about Rabban Gamliel. Concerning wineskins that belong to Gentiles, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says, in the name of Rabbi Yoshua ben Kefusai, it is prohibited to fashion from them items such as blankets to cover a donkey, as one derives benefit from them. Okay, so the shards of the earthenware that would be used to raise a bed, you're deriving benefit from that. In other words, you're helping to keep the bed away from vermin on the floor. Remember, people had dirt floors back then. So there could be lots of things crawling around on that dirt floor. So the higher the bed is off the floor, the less likely it is for vermin to get into your bed. So you'd be deriving benefit from the earthenware, even though you're not drinking, using the shard in water and drinking the byproduct. So the wineskin, here you're using a wineskin as a blanket for your donkey. Even that is deriving benefit because it's your donkey, and your donkey is then protected or warm or protected from the saddle, whatever it is. You're providing benefit to the donkey and therefore benefit to you. A sick donkey means, or a hurt donkey makes the donkey worth less, and it's impacting your assets. Right? So it's prohibited to fashion from them items such as blankets to cover a donkey, as one derives benefit from them. The Gemara explains the objection. And here, in the case of wineskins used as donkey covers, he desires its continued existence for another matter, and yet the Baraita teaches that it's prohibited to use it for this purpose. Can't derive benefit at all from anything related to wine of Gentiles. The Gemara retorts, and according to your reasoning, it should be prohibited to sell jugs belonging to Gentiles, and yet Jews sell them frequently. What's different about wineskins from which one may not derive indirect benefit, and what's different about jugs which may be sold for indirect benefit, right? So why are empty jugs of Gentiles allowed to be sold by Jews? The Gemara answers that Rava says, there's a rabbinic decree that one may not sell wineskins of Gentiles, lest his own wineskin break open, and to repair it, he would take the Gentile's wineskin and sew it into his wineskin. This would cause the wine absorbed in a Gentile's wineskin to mix with the wine of the Jew and render it forbidden. So if your jug breaks, you're not going to take a piece from another jug to repair your jug. Right? So I don't know if they had the glue back in those days that would be strong enough to enable a jug to be repaired in that way. But a wineskin could be repaired in that way, and you might be tempted to take a piece of a Gentile wineskin and sew it into your Jewish wineskin, and therefore you'd be having a little bit of taste of the Gentile wine mixed in with kosher wine, and that would be forbidden. So that's why wineskins are totally forbidden from use, but jugs might be allowed to be used for some other purpose. The Gemara asks, and according to the one who says that someone who desires the continued existence of a prohibited item for another matter is prohibited from using the item in this way, what's different about jugs that purchasing them is permitted? The Gemara explains that this sage could have said to you there, with regard to the jugs, there's no substantive prohibited entity, whereas here, in the case of Hadrianic earthenware, there is a substantive prohibited entity, as the wine is recognizable in the earthenware. So if the wine isn't recognizable in the jug or other earthenware, then it's okay to use it in an indirect way. But if it is recognizable, then it's not permitted to use it in an indirect way at all. All right, so it's just interesting. I think the more contact rabbis had with Gentiles, especially pagans, the more that they would be strict about the use of pagan products. But today, since there aren't pagans around to the extent that there were back then, these laws just are not these laws really aren't followed to the degree that they were back then. Okay, so now we're back to the Shimon ben Gouda testimony about Rabban Gamliel and about Rabban Gamliel drinking Gentile wine in the city of Akko. It was stated that Shimon ben Gouda provided testimony, but the sages did not concede to its ramifications. Right? In other words, right back in the story above, they did not concede that Gouda's testimony, Shimon ben Gouda's testimony, was accurate enough to believe it. Okay? And the Gemara raises a contradiction. With regard to wine that comes in the flagons of Gentiles, one is prohibited from drinking the wine, but one is permitted to derive benefit from it. Shimon ben Gouda testified before the son of Rabban Gamliel with regard to Rabban Gamliel that he drank from it in Akko, and they conceded to him. This directly contradicts the episode cited above. So what is it? Here's a story that says that they believed Shimon ben Gouda, and above we had the exact same story where they said they didn't believe him, or conceding to him, not conceding to him. Right? The Gemara explains, what is the meaning of this sentence, but they did not concede to the ramifications of his testimony, which was stated there in the first account. The meaning is that the rest of his entire company, that is the sages, did not concede, but his son did concede to him. Okay, so maybe somebody did concede, right? Gamliel's son agreed with Shimon ben Gouda, yeah, you're right, Dad did drink that wine. If you wish, say instead that Gouda with the letter Aleph, as stated in the first episode, is discrete, and Gouda with an ayin in the second account is discrete. That is, the two incidents are not referring to the same individual, right? We have Gouda and Gouda, but they're spelled differently. I don't know. It's like Amy and Amy, A-I-M-E-E or A-M-Y, right? So sounds the same, but it's spelled differently. So it's two different Amy's. So Gouda and Gouda with an Aleph and ayin might sound the same, but I tell you, the ayin though, one could be Gouda and one could be Gouda. So if you have the Sephardic kind of Arab country ayin, it would sound a little bit different. So, okay, so we're talking about two different people, it's two different stories. Okay, the Mishnah further teaches, and hides with a tear opposite the heart are prohibited. Right. So back in the Mishnah, you might recall that it depends where the hole in the hide was, and if it's with right where the heart of the animal was, you're not allowed to use that hide, because clearly the Gentile was opening that animal to use the heart for some pagan ritual. So then you're somehow deriving some benefit then by buying that hide from Gentile pagan practice. Yes, Bess? You're muted.
I clicked it. I'm sorry. Is there a difference between flagon and jug? First, we were talking about jugs, and just previously, we were talking about flagons.
Right. It's a different word, but I don't know in terms of size, content, shape. I don't know. So I don't know if I don't think we have pictures of flagons versus jugs. So that's a bust of Hadrian.
The only
A
So,
flagon is a serving container
so Michael is saying a flagon is a serving container.
with a handle and a spout as opposed to just a jug.
Okay, so with a handle and a spout as opposed to just a jug. So, okay, I don't know. You can Google it and you'll see the difference between flagons and jugs. Okay, and right. So, yeah, if you Google it, you'll see a picture because Michael is just showing me a picture on his smartphone. Okay, so, but we're on to hides now. The Mishnah further teaches, and hides with a tear opposite the heart are prohibited. The sages taught, what is considered a hide with a tear opposite the heart? Any hide that is torn opposite the heart and incised in a shape similar to an aperture and which has a trace of coagulated blood on it is prohibited. All right, so there's background. Just a second here. Um, just a second. It's a, just okay. It was Joyce Torchinsky about a funeral I have to do on Wednesday. So torn opposite the heart. Apparently, this was a ritual performed in the worship of various deities such as Demeter, Dionysus, Attis, and Mitra. Some sources indicate that part of the ritual included removing the heart of an offering while it was still alive. Accordingly, the presence of blood near the wound indicated that the heart had been carved out before the animal's death, which would have occurred only in the context of such rituals. All right, amazing pain that for the animal. Okay, so right, so that this is now describing then the kind of hide and hole and coagulated blood that has to be on it that would make it clear that it was used for that pagan purpose. And if it does not have a trace of blood upon it, then it is permitted. All right, so they're being a little bit more liberal with what's described in the Mishnah. If it has a hole where the heart was, and the Mishnah says it's prohibited, the rabbis are saying it's only prohibited if there's coagulated blood on it. Rav Huna says they taught that a bloodless hide is permitted only in a case where the Gentile did not salt it. But if he salted it, it is prohibited. As I say, its salting removed the trace of blood. Okay, so if there was blood on it, then you can be assured, according to Rav Huna, that that was the way of getting rid of the blood, so that they were trying to get a Jew to be able to buy it, and hiding the fact that what had been done to the animal previously. Okay. The Mishnah teaches, the Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, a hide is prohibited only when the tear around its heart is circular, but if it is elongated, it is permitted. The Gemara notes, Rav Yosef says that Rav Yehuda says that Shmuel says the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. So circular tear is prohibited, elongated tear permitted. I guess the kind of tear represents how the heart was removed. Abaye said to Rav Yosef, if one rules that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, does that mean by inference that the rabbis disagree? Or perhaps there's no dispute and everyone accepts the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Rav Yosef said to him, what difference is there to you whether or not the rabbis disagree? In either case, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. Abaye said to him, invoking a folk expression with regard to one who learns without achieving understanding, is it simply learn the lesson, let it be like a song? In other words, is it sufficient to simply parrot the halachic ruling? No, it's necessary to examine an issue to understand it, even if it does not yield a practical halachic difference. So this is interesting. In the midst of this discussion about circular tear, elongated tear, salt on the hide, no salt on the hide, coagulated blood on it, not on it, the halacha is according to Shimon ben Gamliel, and then they're saying something's coming up. That does it matter what the issues were? And here, just by the way, getting to the whole idea of what the Talmudic discussion is about. Yeah, it is important to know. It's not just important to know what the bottom line is. It's just as important to know how you get to the bottom line. So in other words, it's like sometimes I remember in math classes for homework, it's good to show your work. And the teacher wants to see your work. They don't want you to say 2 + 2 = 4, oversimplifying here. They want to know how you got to 2 + 2 = 4, because that shows you understand the mathematical principles at work. So here, the same thing Abaye is saying, and Abaye and Rava, important rabbis of the 4th generation of Babylonian rabbis, they're like on almost every page of the Gemara. Abaye is pointing out, hey, the whole idea, this is, and it's not just a Talmudic discussion, it's all about the discussion about Maimonides also. Maimonides summarized Jewish law into 14 volumes, and other rabbis at the time, when they saw what Maimonides had published, were criticizing him. How dare you, Maimonides, for doing away with all the Gemara discussion and just doing the bottom line. You're making it too easy for people. You're providing people with a Reader's Digest version of Jewish law instead of really what everything needs, what this whole process needs to be. So just in this little note here, we get to this very important principle in Jewish teaching. So, I said I wanted to be done by 10:15. It's 10:05. We're at a red S. My phone is lighting up with different things. I'm pulled in so many different directions. So I'm going to have to stop here for today. I'm really sorry. Like I said, I have Mother's Day stuff to do, but I also have to get back to these phone calls that are coming in too. So our last class for the program year is next Sunday, and then we're off until the Sunday after Labor Day. By then, I'm hoping to suggest 2 different things that we could possibly switch to study next year, and hopefully there'll be sections that will be maybe a little bit more interesting than Hadrianic earthenware jugs. Okay, have a good rest of the day, everybody. Happy Mother's Day to the mothers who are on, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Not me, but okay.
All right. Take care.